But let me bring in Denis MacShane, who was the United Kingdom's Minister for Europe from 2002 to 2005. Denis, good to have you on TRT World. Just a short while ago, we actually saw pictures, or the latest pictures, of King Charles speaking to senior politicians. He had met with the new UK Prime Minister, Liz Truss. Just talk us through how the formality of all of that and how it would all work and what they would likely be discussing during a time really when the country's going through a massive grief process.
Yes, the country is, but the affairs of state have to go on, and the country faces enormous challenges. It's in a very, very poor state. Liz Truss, the new Prime Minister, has reversed her previous policy of opposing any help to the people of Britain over these inflationary energy price rises, and now is going to impose a kind of price freeze like the rest of Europe, and as Labour proposed. That's a good thing. But we have many, many other problems that have been bequeathed to Britain by the kind of behaviour of Boris Johnson, a health service that doesn't work, 14 million households living underneath the level of poverty, the British Army reduced to the lowest numbers since the 18th century, and so on and so on and so on. Huge difficulties. There's a huge demonstration tonight outside Scotland Yard, that's the head of the Metropolitan Police, about the police gunning down and shooting a popular rapper. His family say they wouldn't have done that if the man had been white, but because he was black, he was a target. So I think it's not for the king to solve these problems, or for any monarch to solve the political and social economic problems of the country, but it's good he's talking. It was very interesting to see today all the former prime ministers, and I think that the country would like to see some sense of greater national unity coming together of the political class instead of the backbiting and denunciation that if Labour says 1 and 1 is 2, the Tories say that's a wicked lie, and if the Tories say 2 and 2 make 4, Labour says that's an even bigger lie. And people want a more grown-up politics, and who knows, perhaps this sad loss could be a catalyst for that.
Do you think that will actually happen, though? I mean, the Queen's funeral is on the 19th of September. I think safe to say that maybe till then, not much emphasis will be placed on the many issues, like you said, that Britain is facing, the rising cost of living. Liz Truss saying that she's not going to cut taxes, but is capping prices for households, not businesses, though, for a certain period of time. So once all of this dies down, really, so to speak, British politicians really have their work cut out for them, especially as the country gets closer to the winter months.
Very much so, and also, if I may say so, closer to an election. Liz Truss is an intelligent woman, she's tenacious. She started off as a left-winger calling for the abolition of the monarchy and the legalisation of cannabis. She supported being in the European Union, but she's changed those positions. So that's good. Politicians should change their positions at times. And I think she'll change a few more, because her big problem after the state funeral in a little over a week's time, when the country does get back to normal, her only question, every question from every one of the Conservative MPs in the majority of the House of Commons is, Liz, Prime Minister, can you keep us our seats in 2 years' time at the next general election? And Britain doesn't like extremes. It repudiates extremist politics, hard left or hard right politics. To get selected as the leader of the Conservative Party, the Prime Minister, Liz Truss has promised rather a lot of very hard right-wing politics, especially for the very aging or elderly militants of the Conservative Party. But to get elected, the broad mass of the 65 million people in Britain, I think she's going to have to recenter. I think all over the world you'll see the state coming back into play, the days of ultra-liberal ideology, just let markets can solve everything, that kind of line. I think that's over. We've got this terrible war unleashed by Putin as if he was sub-dictator from the 1930s, bringing torture and flames and war and killings and deportations back to the soil of Europe. That has to be solved. And all of it needs enhanced international and European cooperation. That's a big problem, challenge for Liz, because, of course, Boris Johnson was so hostile to cooperating with Europe or with almost anybody around the world. And we have to bring foreign policy and international politics back, I think, into the mainstream of political decision-making in Britain.
Mm-hmm. One of the issues, I want to just bring this back to King Charles, because before he was king, which was just a few days ago, he was very vocal about climate change and the world doing more to minimize the impact of climate change. But now that he is king, do you think his stance will change, or he will be less vocal or even vocal at all about these issues? His mother was famously a queen who we didn't know what her political leanings were and kind of stayed out of that type of thing. King Charles, though, in the past has been known to have certain gaffes or have to be quite straightforward about what he thinks and how he feels. Do you think this will continue into the new era of the British monarchy?
Fascinating, important question, and everybody in Britain is asking it. I was rather hoping you might have an answer or give us some insights. I think that's right. Charles, since he left Cambridge, he was there with friends of mine. I've skied with him. He has been passionate on a number of green issues. He did hint yesterday in his first address to the nation as our king, that, look, what I could do and say before, I can't do or say now. I must obey the rules. I'm a constitutional monarch. It's the government that decides policy. And he didn't quite say, I'm going to give up what I believed in. There's a pretty clear steer that he's not going to be a kind of campaigning king. He'll be, respectable, respectful constitutional monarch, obeying all the rules. But that said, he's got those commitments, those beliefs. For example, he is very hostile to fracking. He's known to be hostile to fracking. That's the exploration of trying to get gas from underneath the land surface. It's very popular in Canada, in America, in Canada, and some other countries. In Britain, there's very strong opposition to it. And Prince Charles has lent his support to that opposition. Liz Truss has said in the past, I'm not saying she's saying it now, she thinks fracking is essential for Britain if we're to the countries to recover some energy independence.
Yeah, well, she said it just earlier this week when she actually gave her proposals on the energy crisis in the UK. She's all for fracking.
That's right. Well, an interesting discussion between the king and his prime minister on that, I expect. But in the end, she's got the backing of the House of Commons. She is the prime minister. There's absolutely nothing he can do. He is the centre of attention, rightly so. He's handled himself, I must say, slightly better than I expected. I think he's done admirably well so far. And that's important for the stability of the country going through a terrible time. But Liz Truss will be in charge as of, I think, the day after the Queen's funeral.
Okay, and that funeral, of course, taking place on the 19th of September. Denis MacShane, thank you so much for speaking to us and giving us your expertise there. Thank you so much.
Great pleasure.